Hello, and welcome back to another episode of In the Corner. I'm Cash. Today we have episode 98. We're close to having done 100 of these, which is just absurd, but we've got a really good fight weekend coming up. Two pay-per-view cards tomorrow in the afternoon, as well as a BKFC card on top of that. We have Tom Aspinall's first defense of his UFC heavyweight championship against Ciryl Gane, as well as Joseph Parker and Fabio Wardley fighting for the WBO interim heavyweight championship. Winner will be first in line for a spot against Oleksandr Usyk for the Undisputed Championship. So, big heavyweight weekend. I cannot wait for both these events. We're going to dive into it and preview both of them. This weekend, we were supposed to also have Sebastian Fundora, Keith Thurman, as well as Frazier Clark, Jimmy TKV. So, it was meant to be a little bit more of a blockbuster weekend. Two of those events did get canceled. However, we've still got plenty of great fights to talk about and watch, and it's going to be an awesome afternoon tomorrow. No fights during the evening, but tomorrow afternoon in the States, it's going to be a lot of fun. Let's talk about UFC first. Tom Aspinall's first true heavyweight championship against Ciryl Gane. This week there's been a lot of really interesting discussion because though ever since the fight was announced, everyone's just been saying Aspinall's going to blow him out of the water. And now everyone's starting to say, well, let's not underestimate Gane. I mean, Gane has fought everyone. He went the distance with Francis Ngannou. He's one of the best guys in the heavyweight division. Tom Aspinall, I would stand there and I would say that this is probably Tom Aspinall's toughest opponent on paper. So why are we saying that Tom Aspinall is going to blow him out of the water in one minute like he's no one? I mean, this guy is a legit contender. With that being said, I don't want this, as the fight gets closer, I feel like once we're a few days out from the event, that's when people start to say, oh, well, maybe he's got more of a chance. We do it all the time. I remember when Dillian White was going to fight Moses Atama, everyone all of a sudden started saying, I think Dillian White can do it. I'm not going to do that. I think that Ciryl Gane may show something in there, but if I'm being honest, I still think Tom Aspinall finishes him, and I think he does it rather quickly. I think this is a statement win. I think that Tom Aspinall is exceptional. Do I think that he beats John Jones and Alex Pereira? That's a much different conversation. I think he has a chance, but those are the fights I want to see. I really do feel like everyone else in this heavyweight division, Tom Aspinall kind of just sparks them. I don't feel like there's anybody else that's going to be able to compete with him. And we saw this week his dad saying that he doesn't want Tom to renew his contract with the UFC. He has 3 fights left on it. Once those 3 fights are up, he wants Tom to move over to boxing and try and become a boxing champion. And I am very against that. I think that sucks. Dana White said that he doesn't like hearing that, as he should. You don't want your heavyweight champion just waiting to leave. It feels like all the UFC fighters are just wanting to leave and go to boxing for bigger paydays. I mean, you can't blame them, but in terms of UFC, you don't want them to do that. And I stand by that. However, I'll also say that if Tom Aspinall doesn't get to fight John Jones, if he doesn't get to fight Alex Pereira, and no new, crazy heavyweight contenders surge, you can't blame him because there's nobody else competitive for him. The heavyweight division is just so dry right now that Ciryl Gane is probably one of the better options for Aspinall to fight, and I think that he's going to beat him pretty easily. You know what? Maybe we see a crazy upset, and I would be shocked if I would think it's a big win for Gane to even get Aspinall out of the first round. I think he's only ever been out of the first round once. So that'll be a win in itself. But yeah, I think that Tom Aspinall wins this fight inside the distance, probably in the first round. I really am excited to see what this is, and I do believe we're starting to enter the Tom Aspinall era. Like I said, if he's not going to get these other guys to fight him, I think that he's going to go on a huge run in the division. We saw DC whispering in his ear when he thought Tom Aspinall, he didn't realize Tom Aspinall was mic'd up, just telling him like, yo, dude, you could do some crazy stuff here. This division is wide open for you to just dominate. And I really like Tom Aspinall. I don't think he's boring as a personality. I think he's pretty cool and funny. So I'm excited to see the start of this new era. Co-main event, Virna Jandiroba versus Mackenzie Dern 2. I have a lot of trouble getting excited for this fight. And I'm not even someone who's like, oh, I hate the women's MMA. I just turn it off. I'm a big fan of women's fights in general, but this fight just doesn't really have anything to it that really excites me. There's no Zhang Weili. There's no Kayla Harrison. There's no Valentina Shevchenko. None of these superstars, super good pound-for-pound fighters. I mean, not to say that Jandiroba and Dern aren't good. They just don't really excite me in terms of, this being the coming event on a pay-per-view, this being a legitimate world title fight. I don't know. As for who wins it, I see Mackenzie Dern is a slight favorite. I kind of am behind Virna Jandiroba. I think that she may get it done, so I'm leaning her way. But we're just going to have to see which way this one goes, excuse me. and what other fights there are, because without Zhang Weili, their strawweight may not be as exciting of a division. Umar Nurmagomedov versus Mario Bautista. I think this is really going to become a title eliminator. I think whoever wins this will be in line next to fight the winner of Merab Dvalishvili versus Piotr Yan 2. And I think Umar should win this fight. I don't think it's a guarantee, but I would be pretty surprised and impressed if Mario Bautista can put together two great performances. Obviously, the Patchy Mix upset was fantastic. And then if he comes in here and he somehow beats Umar, that would be insane. But Umar is a minus 625 favorite, and you can't really argue with that. I would be very shocked if he doesn't come through this one with the win, and I expect him to have a pretty good victory. And you know what? Merab's fight with Umar was really competitive. I will not complain in the slightest, because Merab has taken out everyone at 135 already. If he's got to have some rematches, I think that Umar should be at the top of that list. Not to say that I don't think that Merab won that fight. I definitely think Merab won the first fight, but it was competitive, and I think that if any of the guys deserve a rematch, I think that Umar deserves one more than Corey Sandhagen does, So I would not be, or even more than Piotr Yan does. So, yeah, I think the winner of this will be in line to fight for the title. Another title eliminator, Alexander Volkov versus Jailton Almeida. This should be an interesting one. I'm curious which way this one goes. I don't keep on saying that. Volkov is just huge. He is the underdog in this fight. Jailton Almeida has been on a really good, exciting run. I'm excited to see who wins this fight, because the winner of this is going to be in line to fight Tom Aspinall. I don't think there's any doubt about that, and I have no complaints about that. I think both those fights would be good. Almeida is very explosive. Volkov is just huge. So to see him in there with Aspinall would be a lot of fun. So we'll see who wins that one. And then the opener fight on the main card is going to be Alexander Rakic versus Azamat Murzakanov. Top 10 fight at light heavyweight. The odds on this are super close. If Rakic can get a win here, he'll probably move up more, but I think Murzakanov, maybe he can get it done. I don't know. This is a good fight. I'm looking forward to that one. It will have implications for the 205 division, which is starting to pick up a little bit more steam now, I feel. Especially if Pereira's going to move to heavyweight, that division becomes a lot more open, and you get a lot more exciting fights, and one of these guys can make a play in that. Looking at the prelims, Nasrat Hakparas versus Quillan Sakilo, another very close odds fight. Ikram Alaskarov is a decent favorite over Jun Young Park. Looking forward to seeing him back in there. Mateusz Rubeski versus Ludovic Klein. I'm seeing a lot of people get excited about this, saying it could be a potential fight of the night. Walter Walker, Louis Sutherland. Walter Walker is a minus 360 favorite. Sutherland is looking massive, and I don't know if that's a good thing, but he's looking big. Nathaniel Wood is back. He's fighting Jose Miguel Delgado. That should be good. Chris Barnett is back. He's fighting Hamdi Abdel Wahab. He's a pretty big underdog, but I'm excited for this. Chris Barnett has been going crazy with the edits all week. Everyone's really excited to see him back out. He's just a wild, wild man. His highlights are so funny. I really like his character, and I don't know, man. I'm excited to see this. I'm pulling for him to get the win. Let's see if he can do it, but I know UFC Twitter is going to have a lot of fun when he comes into the cage. So, yeah, I think it's going to be a really fun night overall in Abu Dhabi. An earlier UFC pay-per-view. I like early cards. I won't lie. I honestly love watching fights during the day. Watching fights at night is great too, but I don't know why. I honestly kind of prefer watching it during the day. And that's not the only card we'll have on during the day. At the same time, Joseph Parker, Fabio Wardley, an incredibly, incredibly important fight to the heavyweight division of boxing. Joseph Parker is easily number 2 in the heavyweight division behind, of course, Oleksandr Usyk. Fabio Wardley's not far behind him. I probably have him at like number 7 or 8 in my heavyweight rankings. He's close to getting into that mix. If he beats Joseph Parker, you have to think he jumps the queue. The only man who I can think of that deserves a shot more than Fabio Wardley if he wins would probably be Ajit Kabayel. But if Wardley does win this one and he gets the shot against Usyk, I can't complain. I do not think he'll be able to do it, though. Just when you look at these guys, look at Wardley's last fight against Justice Hooney. He was getting pieced up and dominated for the majority of that fight until he did land that one fight-changing punch in which he knocked out Justice Hooney, and he does have that equalizer. That's his thing. You look at his record. He's 20-0 with 18 knockouts. He's a much bigger puncher than Joseph Parker is, but Joseph Parker's a much better boxer. This guy is completely dominated Deontay Wilder, outboxed Zhilei Zhang, and stopped Martin Bakole in 2 rounds. Although Martin Bakole won, has a little bit of an asterisk because he was nowhere near fight shape for that match. But I still think that Joseph Parker is a level above Fabio Wardley at the moment. I think Wardley, this is his first true world-level fight. It could be a step too far. And I don't love saying that because I feel like we've said that about Fabio Wardley for a long time. He comes from without much of an amateur background. But this one does just seem a little bit of he may have bitten off more than he can chew. And I find it hard to not hop behind Parker as a pretty decent favorite in this fight. As for how it goes, I think Parker stopping Wardley is more than possible. I can also very well see it go in the distance. Parker is not someone who, knocks everyone out. He's not this otherworldly power puncher. Sure, he's got some, some power. Don't doubt that. He's a heavyweight. He can turn your lights out, but he's not like Fabio Wardley. Fabio Wardley is known for his power. He's more like Anthony Joshua. Joseph Parker's more like Tyson Fury, boxer versus puncher. So I think that Joseph Parker certainly gets the job done. If he does stop him, I think it comes late in the fight, and then I think he stamps his ticket to fight Usyk, and that's undoubtedly the fight you make next. Early, mid next year, maybe around April, May time, you do Usyk versus Parker. Anywhere. You could do it in New Zealand. You could do it in America, Saudi Arabia, of course the UK, of course Ukraine if you can get it figured out there with the situation. Lots of interesting nights to come in the heavyweight division, and this is definitely the biggest heavyweight fight at the moment, and I'm really excited for it. Heavyweight nights are the best. Also on this undercard, Georgian Oldadaj versus Rolly Lambert for the IBO Cruiserweight Championship was just added a couple weeks ago. I'm excited for this. I think this is the co-main event, which I don't understand why it's co-main. This undercard is not horrendous, but it's not good, especially not for a pay-per-view. This fight will be important. You're going to have a new contender at Cruiserweight because Cruiserweight is such a dead division. Somebody else emerging as IBO champion, even though it's not a legitimate world title, it definitely throws them into the mix to get some bigger events going on and some bigger fights made in that division. So I'm thinking Oldadaj probably gets it done here. And if he does, he can get into the mix at Cruiserweight in the top 10. Ezra Taylor fighting Steve Woodall. Obviously, he was meant to fight Louis Edmondson for the British Championship. Edmondson got injured earlier this week. I think Steve Woodall is a decent replacement opponent, but Ezra Taylor is certainly still going to beat him. He'll probably stop him. Ezra Taylor is very, very good. And that's why I was excited to see him fight Edmondson. But, we'll just have to see how this one goes. I don't see Steve Woodall standing much of a chance, but not the worst late notice opponent. Danny Quartermain versus Royston Barney Smith is actually a very, very interesting fight. Undefeated fighters at super featherweight, IBF and WBO European championships on the line. This one should be really interesting. I would think that you'd have to favor Barney Smith. I think he may have a higher ceiling, but I feel like Quartermain has been in these more real fights for a little bit longer now, and he's got a little bit more experience. So, that's probably the best fight on the undercard just in terms of competition. I'm looking forward to that. You've also got another 10-round fight between Mitchell Smith and Arnie Dawson. Mitchell Smith coming off a pretty long layoff, and he's had a big comeback in his last few fights. Arnie Dawson 8-0 undefeated. This fight was also just added. I don't know, not really too much to talk about in that one. I don't understand much about either of these guys. I'm not going to say, I have no interest, but I have no interest in this being on a pay-per-view. I don't get it. But who knows? Maybe they put on a really good show, and a new name is born in British boxing. Other than that, just a lot of prospects. Tony Curtis is on here. Zayn Ahmed having his debut. A lot of debuts on this card. Let's see. You've got 1, 2, or is it just 2? No, it's actually only just 1. I swear earlier this week I thought there was more debuts. It's just the debut of Zayn Ahmed, Hassan Ishak as well. And then Jimmy Dean Wood, George Crotty, and Anton Essen. A lot of 4-rounders. I don't know, man. I feel like Queensberry's dropped the ball a little bit on this undercard. I know it was meant to be better. I know they meant to have Denzel Bentley, Andrew Saavedra. I would have liked a little bit better prospects too, but I don't know. We also know that we're going to get the announcement of the next December 13th big card. I'm worried that one's going to be pay-per-view as well. We'll talk about that a little bit more in a minute. But another card on Saturday, BKFC 83 from Rome, Italy. Chris Camozzi defends his Cruiserweight Championship against 1-0 Alessio Sakara. I like that they're having these events in Italy. This is Camozzi's second time headlining the Italy card, and Sakara's getting a big shot here. I don't necessarily love them getting title shots to guys who just entered the organization, but we'll see. The last guy that Camozzi fought gave it a pretty good go, so maybe Sakara can show something here, but I definitely would have to think that Chris Camozzi will come out of this one on top. Ben Bonner versus Franco Tenaglia is actually a really, really exciting fight. That's probably the fight of the night, in my opinion, just because this is like a lightweight semifinal. I think that you're going to have Palomino and Trout rematch later this year, and that will be for the other lightweight semifinal. And the winners of those two fights will meet for the full championship next year. But yeah, Ben Bonner coming off a good win. Franco Tenaglia wanting to get back in there. He's also had a good win recently. So I'm excited for that fight. The co-main event is probably the best fight on the card. You also have Francesco Ricci back in action. He is fighting Joseph Hala. Another interesting one, Jimmy Sweeney versus Carlos Trinidad Snake. Trinidad coming off of the loss earlier this year in Dubai. So, I mean, yeah, I think this is a more stacked BKFC card. I feel like they're getting more fighters under their organization, and because of that, we're going to get more stacked numbered cards at least. I mean, the fight nights are fun, but I like the numbered cards more. They're bigger. You got title fights. You got more important matches happening, and this one looks like we're going to have some pretty good fights to throw on. We also have some fights over in Kyrgyzstan promoted by Kameda Promotions. A little bit of some smaller cards, but some interesting fights in lower weight divisions. Hassan Boy Dusmatov versus Rene Calixto in an IBF flyweight eliminator for the number 2 spot. I did see Dusmatov came in like 3 pounds overweight, so I don't know if he's still going to be eligible for that spot, but I also think that he'll probably end up beating Calixto, you'd have to think. So not sure what happens in that situation. John Riel Casimero is also back on this card. He's fighting Kayonosuke Kameda. I have to think Casimero is going to win that fight as well. Although I thought he was at 122. Now this fight he's fighting at a catch weight of 128, which apparently he barely made. So it seems like he's more of a featherweight now. Also on this card, you have on the next day's card, this is a 2-day event, you have Luis Neri back in action. He's fighting Sathaporn Sart. If both Neri and Casimero can win those fights, I don't see any reason why they don't just end up fighting each other. I think that's a good fight. Probably top 10, top 15 in that featherweight division. And yeah, that would be a good one. I'm wondering if Kameda's going to pull any more crazy hijinks because that's kind of his thing. But we'll have to see. It could be a good one. We also had a card last night in Puerto Rico, Joshua Pagan versus Malik Montgomery. This is a fight that I think a lot of people were excited for just because it'd be hard to imagine this fight not delivering, and it delivered. Pagan, obviously, not a huge knockout puncher, but undefeated, a lot of fun to watch. And Montgomery, huge knockout puncher, coming off his first loss to Jeremy Hill, comes into this fight, and they were just throwing leather the whole time. Pagan was winning almost every round. I hit him up, I think, 6 rounds to 2 at the time of the stoppage. I thought that he was looking really good and was just, doing the cleaner boxing work and was frustrating Montgomery. Of course, the story of the fight was the big cut over the eyebrow of Montgomery, which inevitably ended the fight in round number 9. Would have liked to have seen him gone the distance, but can't be mad. He was bleeding a lot. Montgomery kind of said he wants a rematch after. Don't really know if I have a lot of interest because Pagan was comfortably ahead on the scorecards, but it was a fun fight. I really liked it. And, yeah, props to Salida and OTX for making a 50-50 matchup for those guys early on in their careers. Curious what's next for Pagan. I don't know if they're going to step him up to world level or anything like that, but hopefully they can get him another opponent around the same level as Malik Montgomery. He'll be in another good one. Co-main event there, you had Ashley and Lozada get a good dominant decision win. Her first real tough test over 8 rounds for I think it was the WBC Latino title. So, yeah, I mean, she'll be fast-tracked pretty quickly. Women's boxing, you can get up there pretty quick, especially in the lower weight division. She's already in 8-rounders after having only 3 fights. After that is just 10, and that's championship-level fights. So, yeah, hopefully we get some big nights for her, and Salida's got some good fighters under their belt. I just hope they can develop them properly without Clarissa Shields now to help carry the brand. Without further ado, let's get into some news that we've had in the last few days. Matchroom have announced that they have won the IBF purse bid for the Raymond Muratalla versus Andy Cruz lightweight championship match. That is a really, really good fight. One of the best fights to be made, maybe in all of boxing, but especially in that lightweight division. 2 up-and-coming guys. Muratalla obviously just won the title last year. Won the interim title and then was elevated to full champion. Andy Cruz is only 6-0, so he'd get there pretty quickly in his career, professional career that is. This is a really good fight. I'd probably have to favor Andy Cruz in this one, but man, I'm excited, and it's good to hear that Matchroom have won the purse bid and one that Raymond Muratalla didn't just avoid it. There was a little bit of rumors that he wasn't going to go, or I wouldn't say rumors, but kind of worries that he'd find a way around getting into this fight. I mean, it's definitely a rough first title defense for him. And I'm not saying that, he's going to lose 100%. Like, he's still a really good fighter. He's undefeated as well. But it's good that Matchroom won the purse bid and not Top Rank because Top Rank has no TV deal, and it would suck if Top Rank tried to get the fight and then didn't put the fight on because they don't have any TV deal. So good to see it's going to happen. Eddie Hearn said today that they're looking for in January to have their first UK show on January 24th, first US show on January 31st, and this one will likely end up being that US show. So looks like we're going to get this one pretty early on in January, and I wouldn't be surprised if they announce that this fight is happening January 31st, or at least early in 2026 in the coming weeks. But yeah, big fight. I wonder where they do it in the U.S., but yeah, I'm excited for that one a lot. It was also announced by Queensberry that Ajit Kabayel will have his Germany homecoming on January 10th. We knew this was going to happen, but good to see it's been announced and that we're going to keep on getting good fights every week into the new year. I'm very curious who they're going to choose for as opponent now. A lot of the conversation was around Nelson Husa, but he did just have a fight announced in December, I want to say. So I don't think it'll be him, and I'm glad. I'd rather see Kabayel fight somebody a little bit better. I'd wanted to see Kabayel fight Lawrence Okolie. Kabayel is WBC interim champion. Okolie's number 1 in the WBC. It was just announced that Okolie's going to fight in Lagos on December 19th. We don't know who he's fighting either. So it feels like a lot of the heavyweight fighters are getting fights set up, but we don't know who they're going to fight yet. So I'm curious who they throw in there with Kabayel, just hoping it's a decent opponent and still someone in the top 15 or so that we can get a good fight with. Honestly, why don't we do Ajit Kabayel versus Filip Hrgovic? That'd be a great match, and between two top 7 or 8 heavyweights, and again, would get us closer to figuring out who's going to be next in line for that shot at the undisputed king, Oleksandr Usyk. Speaking of heavyweights, Frank Warner said that Derek Chisora, Jarrell Miller is now off. Second time we've tried to make this fight happen. Jarrell Miller can just simply not get a fight booked. It's so hard for him to get a fight every single time. Something goes wrong, it gets announced, it gets called off. Just can never happen. But he did say that the card is set to be announced on Saturday. It doesn't seem like it's 100% sure that Moses Atama will be on this Manchester card as well. They're trying to figure out what's going on with him and Kubrat Pulev. Frank Warren seems to think that even though the Pulev-Gassiev fight has been announced, that they can still try and get Atama versus Pulev next because that fight was ordered and Pulev versus Gassiev has not been approved by the WBA, he's saying. So we'll see. Maybe they can try and find their way around that. But I'm growing a little bit more worried that Itama will not be fighting again in 2025. However, it does seem like Chisora will still be fighting. Hopefully they can get a deal done in the next few days, but I don't know if this fight will still be announced on tomorrow's fight card. I hope so, but we'll just have to see. There's rumors it could be a Dillian Whyte trilogy. That's one that I've said I would love to see Chisora try and get that one back. Both of them need to retire. It'd be a huge fight in the UK. They would sell out any arena in the UK. Let them both go out together in an iconic trilogy. I feel like it makes all the sense in the world for that one to be last. But if it's not going to happen, I get it. I just hope it's a Chisora, and I would really love for it to be White. Maybe that's what it'll be. But we find out in, hopefully just a few hours from now, in the next 24 hours. Misfits Boxing announced a really strategic and smart signing. They just signed Ashton H2O Silv. We kind of thought that they may have been signing him. Obviously, H2O lost to Lucas Body, got knocked down, what I thought was last year's knockout of the year. He was with MVP. They were hyping him up a lot. And then after that, no fight news, and then all of a sudden he just gets released from the promotion out of nowhere. Kind of messed up, kind of dirty that they did that to him after a loss, especially when they signed Body and are now getting him into really good positions. I think he's like number 1 with the WBA, or at least like top 3. So they're doing really good work with Body, but then just kind of left H2O out in the rain. So out in the cold. I'm not mad at all for H2O to go over to Misfits. I think it's really smart, and I think it's very smart for Misfits to try and take him, especially with this whole Jake Paul KSI rivalry, which has gone on for a long time. And I think H2O will honestly fit over there really good. He's kind of got that viral fighter essence to him, which Misfits wants in their prospects, to be able to go out there, have great knockouts, and look good and get a lot of views online. That's what Misfits is for. And I think that H2O will be able to thrive really well in there. He's friends with a lot of the guys I know. He trains with a lot of them. So I think it makes a lot of sense for him to go over there, and they can build him back up pretty well. Again, I just hope that they can keep him active and get him good opponents, because I think MVP may have been better for him in that regard. But we'll just see how this new partnership goes. Dana White said that he is confident that the UFC will take a trip to Georgia next year. He said he was at some kind of meeting and a representative from the country was there, and he said they would love to have an event, so he feels pretty confident they'll do that. He says he wants to take Merab home. You can have Merab and Ilya on that card together. They're both from Georgia. Georgia's a small country, but somehow they've got 2 of the 8 male UFC champions. I would love to see them both headline a card in Georgia next year. And yeah, it's good to see that Dana White's interested in doing these more, more unique, rare locations, but, with fighters that will do a huge crowd there. I think it just makes all the sense in the world to bring your champion home and not have him fight in the U.S. 4 times a year, but have him fight in Georgia. Why not? Do an earlier main card, do an earlier numbered event. Who cares? Just get those big fights going and get that big crowd because it'll go crazy. Jalen Turner versus Edson Barbosa has been announced for December 6th. Really interesting fight. Jalen Turner came out of retirement. He retired after his loss in March. And, hey, I'm totally down with this fight. UFC 323 looks like it's going to be a great card. Really, the rest of the pay-per-views for this year have all been stellar. We just had 320. That was great. And then 321, 322 specifically, and 323 are all just phenomenal pay-per-view events, and this one just adds to it. It's going to be great into the year, great into the ESPN era for the UFC, and then we start next year on Paramount with some big fights, hopefully. So, yeah, they're doing some good stuff with UFC right now. Speaking of the UFC's enemy, the PFL have released Larissa Pacheco. Really interesting they've done that. I believe that she's, a free agent now, of course. There's a lot of question of which she's going to go back to the UFC. I know she didn't have a great run there. Obviously, Pacheco had a pretty good run in the PFL until she fought Chris Cyborg and lost that fight. Can't really blame her. It came out of nowhere, and it does suck to see that PFL has lost another one of their, bigger fighters, you could say, more notable names. I'm curious where she goes from here. I wouldn't be surprised if she goes back to the UFC. We'll see how successful she is. But, yeah, another PFL fighter lost this year. Seems like they've lost a lot of their more notable names, and they're all going to the UFC, and they're all losing in the UFC. So that not only is their brand hurting by losing their stars, but it's hurting by seeing their stars go to other places and not be very good and starting to lose all their fights, so not great. Alexandre Gomont and Imam Katayev will share a doubleheader card in Canada this year on December 11th, another Eye of the Tiger show. Those shows have always got a lot of really good, exciting fighters on it, and Gomont and Katayev specifically are no exception. Katayev coming off a robbery loss to David Morrell. I hate that for him. Hopefully after this one, he can get right back into the mix of top 10. I still think he's a top 10 175-pounder. I'd love to see him get a rematch with Morrell or at least fight somebody else good in that division. We did hear recently that Conor Wallace and Michael Eifert are looking like they're set to be fighting for the IBF interim championship. He could fight the winner of that, and he'll probably beat him. So if he can get in with a name like that, I would love to see him, just jump right back into the fray. But he's got to get this win under his belt in December and then on to the big fights in 2026. GBM Sports announced their card for Rotterdam in the Netherlands on November 29th. Greatest Cruz is going to be stepped up to 10 rounds to fight for the IBF European Light Heavyweight Championship against Rostem Ibrahim. Not too familiar with Ibrahim, but, Greatest Cruz, they're really hyping him up. And, he's been really exciting so far in his pro career. A lot of fun to watch. Had all his wins by knockout, except for the last one. Can't remember if he actually did end up stopping Scott Forrest, or at least he got really close. But he's really good. I think they're maybe stepping him up a little bit too far. I don't know if he's ever been past 6 rounds, and now they're throwing him into a 10-rounder. In fact, the Forrest fight may have been 8, but I can't remember if it was 6 or 8. I think it may have been 6. But, yeah, to jump up this far in competition, let's see if he can still handle it. Again, I don't know how good Ibrahim actually is. He may be a walk in the park for Greatest Cruz, but GBM's putting a lot of stock into this guy, and let's see how far he can go because he is definitely a really exciting fighter on paper and an exciting character in the sport. It was also announced on that card that Hughie Fury will be back, and he'll be fighting Michael Webster. Again, another fight where Hughie Fury seems like he's just kind of treading water and just fighting a nobody. Obviously, we know Michael Webster, but he's not a great fighter per se. So I don't know. I would have liked to see Hughie Fury. Honestly, when they're talking about him fighting Dillian White, I thought that made a lot of sense. But they just can't get him any fight of any substance, and now he's fighting on the co-main event in the Netherlands. It just doesn't make a lot of sense to me. And then lastly, we had another event announcement. MVP Showcase 2. This is their second fight week card they're doing, but this one's better than the first one. On the fight week of Jake vs. Tank, we're going to be getting 4 fights on the Tuesday, November 11th at the Seminole Hard Rock Hotel and Casino in Hollywood or Miami, Florida. On that card, you're going to have Jamal Harvey coming for his second pro fight. He's fighting Kevin Cervantes, who's 5-0, 5 knockouts. So a really good test for him in just his second fight. I love that. Harvey, I thought, looked good. I thought Harvey looked good in his first fight, but didn't get to see too much of him. Just one round, and then the guy quit. So we're going to really get to see a true debut here in Miami on a big stage. You're also, excuse me, you're also going to be having on this card a rematch between Nazarena Romero, former world champion, and Mayerlin Rivas over 8 rounds. So you got to put another good women's fight on this card. Excited to see that one and how that goes. Keno Marley's finally making his pro debut at cruiserweight. He's going to be fighting Diarra Davis Jr. And then you will also have Kaipo Gallegos, who I believe was just recently signed by MVP, as he fights Christian Perez. So 4 interesting fights being added onto that card. Some good prospects, some good contenders, former world champions. Just good fights all the way around from MVP. I love doing these fight week cards. And it looks like they're going to be putting on a pretty good fight week in Miami. I just wish it was in Atlanta like it was initially planned to, but that's okay. That's all I've got for today's episode. Going to do another episode probably Sunday, maybe Monday, where we'll talk about whatever happens between Tom Aspinall and Ciryl Gane and who Oleksandr Usyk's next opponent will be between Joseph Parker and Fabio Wardley. I cannot wait for both these events. It's going to be blockbuster heavyweight action all day. Thank you all so much for listening. Hope you have a good weekend. Enjoy the fights this weekend, and peace out.